Jay here for Trevor Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm in my kitchen. We are live. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Going to be talking about all the latest Manchester United news and mainly the Benjamin Cesco news. That is the big story today. And apologies for being a little bit late. Forgive me, man. Allow me. I'm still on American time. I'm struggling, but I'm here. So, Martin Pete, funny 30 seconds. Sorry. Right, let's talk about Benjamin Cesco then, because we've had a tweet from Fabrizio Romano this morning. I think it wasn't even that long ago, to be honest with you. And we've had a few tweets. First of all, we've had a tweet off. In fact, let me go before I get to the Romano one. I'm going to get to the Florian Plettenberg one, as someone kindly puts their lawnmower on as I'm doing live from my kitchen. Occupational hazard there. One sec, bear with me. There we go. That should be better. Right, let's have a look what Florian Plettenberg had to say. So, Florian Plettenberg, he tweeted. I'll just bring it up because he's done a few tweets around this. I just want to make sure I'm bringing up the latest one. So his pinned tweet was basically saying, exclusive detail. You understand Benjamin Cesco and his camp have reached full verbal agreements with both Manchester United and Newcastle over a long-term contract. Final details were settled yesterday. It mainly depends on which club also reaches an agreement with RB Leipzig. Man United are offering 85 million euros, Newcastle 90 million euros. And then he goes on to say decisive hours ahead. So he tweeted that yesterday. Then an hour ago, he's put full agreement in place between Sesko and Manchester United, as previously revealed. He's ready to sign a contract running until at least 2030 with both United and Newcastle. Manchester United are pushing to close the deal in the next hours. And then also, just before that, he put Manchester United have improved their offer and are currently proposing around 80 million euros as a fixed fee, plus add-ons, previously 75 million euros plus 10. However, there is still no agreement with RB Leipzig. Marcel Schaefer has not accepted the current offer as of this morning at 9:49 a.m. German time, and further improvements are demanded. Benjamin Cesco is waiting for an agreement between the clubs as he's keen to join Manchester United. Now, on that front about him being keen to join Manchester United, Fabrizio Romano 9 hours ago tweeted, Manchester United update revealed on Tuesday night. Man United internally feel Benjamin Cesco wants to join, waiting for a club-to-club agreement. Crucial day ahead to understand more on Cesco's saga, as Newcastle bid is currently 5 million euros higher. Now, sorry, I'm just looking here because there was another one from Romano as well, because it's just been turbo tweeting on it lately from everyone. So, yeah, this was his pinned tweet. So it says, understands Manchester United's feeling from earlier today is even stronger tonight. The club believes Benjamin Cesco only wants to join United. Manchester United forwarded official contract proposal to Cesco, while also keep negotiating with RB Leipzig. So there's quite a lot going on here. It basically seems as though, oh, there you go. Sorry. Here we go. An hour ago, Benjamin Cesco has reached total agreement with Manchester United on personal terms. Contracts until June 2030. Sesko wants to join United. Clear feeling revealed yesterday here. Never gave similar indication to other clubs. Club talks with RB Leipzig continue. So as it stands at the minute, it looks like Sesko and United have agreed the terms. That's a given. It's now between Manchester United and RB Leipzig to agree the terms. There is, as well, there were reports that basically there was a sort of gentleman's agreement, I think was being said, between Benjamin Cesco and RB Leipzig, that there were certain clubs he could go to if the money was agreeable. And Manchester United have that agreement. Now, this was, I'm trying to find who the lad who was treating it. Yeah. So I think it was actually Romano who tweeted about there was a gentleman's agreement as long as between Sesko and RB Leipzig, as long as there was a sort of a fee that was met around the sort of 80 million euro mark. And it seems as though that is the case. One sec. Bear with me. I've got this all happening. This is what happens when you do a live and you've got dogs and all sorts going on here. So we're back in the studio later on today. Thank God. Ant else says 2 more signings incoming. I'm telling you, fire emojis. Santa Not says, sorry, I'm late. You're not that late because I was mega late. James Asker says, I'm concerned Romano's been badly beat on the big stories by Unseen this summer. And he's maybe trying to catch up and promised too much here. Maybe. Callum Sea Dog Townhill says, Jay's look, the kids outside. I wish, no, they're in the front room, the kids. It's my dog and the lawnmower next door and all sorts going on. I tell you, there's never a dull moment in this house. Chris Buxton says, do you still prefer Danny Ings, Jay? Yeah, I did prefer Ollie Watkins, obviously, and I still probably do. However, I don't think that's going to happen. It looks as though Benjamin Cesco is going to be the next signing for Manchester United unless there's a massive twist in the tail. So, am I happy about that? Yes, I'm happy we've got Benjamin Cesco. I'm happy we've got Brian and Bruno, Mateus Cunha, and Benjamin Cesco after a season where we massively underperformed in terms of scoring goals. If it was up to me, which it isn't, I'd have probably gone with Ollie Watkins. I get he's older, but I'm not going to complain about the fact we brought in one of the best young strikers, or it looks like we're on the verge of bringing in one of the best young strikers in world football. But let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Let me know. Are you happy about this deal? Because I feel as though everyone was sort of geared towards Gyökeres a few months ago. Most of the chat I spoke when we did these lives, and it was like, look, Manchester United could be in for Victor Gyökeres. Everyone seemed quite keen on that. It looked like Benjamin Cesco was going to go to Arsenal. Then we had the sort of the shift when obviously Gyökeres went to Arsenal. It looked like Sesko wasn't going there. The shift as though United were destined to get Ollie Watkins. That seemed like the most obvious one. Then now, in the last sort of 2 weeks, since David Ornstein did his tweet, it looks as though we're going to see Benjamin Cesco come to Manchester United. Let me know what you think. Antel says, all the lads have gone away. RIP Newcastle. We shall remember you every time we see a barcode. He's been a member of the academy, member for 4 months. He's the one that said he needs 2 more signings. Let me know what you think about Cesco. Let me know what you think about the midfield. I know Ronaldo Brown on the channel has always been talking about how United should be prioritising midfielder. Looks like we're prioritising a striker. Are we going to go in after this signing, if we make it, and get a midfielder? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. James Asker says, deadline day midfielder signing after we finally sell the bomb squad on the cheap. Yeah, we've not had much movement yet, have we? I know Marcus Rashford has obviously gone to Barcelona. Still waiting to see, as far as I know, what's happening with Jadon Sancho. Anthony, there was lots of talk of him moving on. He's still a Manchester United player. Then you've got Garnacho as well, a player that you'd expect to fetch a decent fee. Let me know what you think. Steve M says, I think Sesko is perfect for Amarim's setup. Sabaki says, Jay's 5'7". Everyone thinks I'm dead small because I stand next to Joe Smith. I had that a lot in America. People saying, you're taller than I thought, man, because Joe Smith is like 6'4" or whatever he is, or maybe even a bit taller. Ryan Brewer says, we need a midfielder badly. Louise on loan, maybe. Watch Derek says, Sesko is great in Football Manager and FIFA, so he's obviously a perfect signing. Doc Rock says, Newcastle going to stick to selling Bay. Maurice Marshall says, I still prefer Watkins over Sesko, cheaper and Prem proven. Linton Moodley says, great news. Yeah, I mean, look, you can't be too dismayed at Manchester United going out and going big in the transfer window. I'm not anyway. We were shambolic last season. 15th and losing a final to Spurs is as bad as it gets. It really is. For Manchester United, I mean, if you look at the teams that got relegated, I don't really think Manchester United were ever going to get relegated. So finishing 15th is almost as low as we're realistically going to go. Then to lose a final to anyone is bad, but to lose it to Spurs and to lose the Europa League final to Spurs, which was a bit of a lifeline into the Champions League, was just horrible. It really was. So you look at that season, you go, there's no sugarcoating it. It was disastrous. And a big reason it was disastrous was the lack of goals. You go back to the Premier League table, if you allow me to just bring it up from last season, and it makes sort of horrible reading for Manchester United in terms of the goals scored. With the sat down there in 15th, and I think our goals for was 44. So we scored fewer goals than the likes of Wolves, 20 goals fewer than the likes of Spurs. I think 2 more goals than Everton, 7 less than Palace, 10 less than Fulham, 13 less than Brentford, two fewer, not less, than Bournemouth. I mean, just awful. Brighton scored 15 more goals than us, I think. In fact, no, I'm getting it wrong there. Brighton actually, forgive me, scored 22 more goals than us. Brian, I know they've got Danny Welbeck, but come on. So it's obvious Manchester United needed to address it. And we have done. We've gone out and we've brought in Matheus Cunha early doors. I think that was almost as soon as the transfer window opened. We had that deal wrapped up. So we brought him in for the buyout clause of 62.5 million. Can't really argue about the price because it's his buyout clause. The only way we're going to get him. I like Cunha. We've spoken about him extensively on the channel. Very good player. Scores goals. Exciting. Got a bit of an edge to him, which I like. And he seems to, from the brief glimpses we've seen so far already, have fitted in quite well at Manchester United. Then you look at Brian Mbeumo. We know what he can do. 20 Premier League goals last season. United haven't had someone who scored 20 Premier League goals for us since Robin van Persie in 2013. So you can't dismiss that. I know he scored a few penalty goals, but so what? He still scored 20 Premier League goals. And then you look at bringing in Benjamin Cesco, a player that has been linked with all the, a host of clubs around Europe for the last couple of years. He's not as prolific as someone like Victor Gyökeres, but 13 Bundesliga goals. I think it was around 17, 18 goal involvements in 34 games. Isn't to be sniffed at. He's still very young at 22. So it makes sense to me. It does. And I think if you've changed your entire front three after you failed to score goals and you've brought in three players that are very highly rated and can do a job, then I don't think Manchester United fans can, well, I won't tell you guys what to do, but I don't think we can be too disappointed with that. Let me know what you think, though, because we are United fans and we do like to moan. Martin P says, for Sesko to work, the rest of the team need to step up. It can't just be on one player. Rasmus could come good if squad is together. Need a midfielder. Yeah, let me know. Do you rate Rasmus Hojlund? Do you think he could shine still? Do you think him being potentially an understudy to Benjamin Cesco would be better for him? Or do you think he's going to go? Ayash Farmer says, will selling Hojlund reduce depth in number 9 position? He too seems highly motivated to fight for his spot. What else have we got? J-Bone McSwiggins says, where can I meet the Paddock boys at Fiorentina? I think Adam McCullough is going to that one. Me and Joe are going to be in the studio for the watch-along. Thomas Potts says, madness to have one striker last season. Any other team have 3 or 4. John Craig says, isn't Sesko another Rasmus? Young striker with potential. I would say that I think Benjamin Cesco has done more at Leipzig and more in his career than Hojlund had done by the time Manchester United bought him. Manchester United bought Hojlund basically off one good season, didn't we, at Atalanta, where I think, unless I'm mistaken, I think, was it 9 goals or was it 10 goals in Serie A before we bought him, which is, it's fine. It's not disastrous. Yeah, it was 9 Serie A goals. And we bought him off the back of that. 10 goals in all competitions in 34 games for Atalanta. Now, 9 goals is fine. I'm not, trying to be too harsh on the lad. I think he's had enough criticism, but it's not amazing. And then he comes to Manchester United and actually did better. He got 10 Premier League goals in 30 games, which I thought was a decent return for a new striker. 16 in 43 in all competitions. But then you want him to kick on the following season. 4 Premier League goals, 10 in all competitions in over 50 appearances. Not really good enough. Is there still potential there, though? Can he kick on? Can he get more goals this season? Can he play a part at Manchester United? Maybe rotating with Benjamin Cesco, maybe being his understudy. Let's wait and see. I don't know what is going to happen with Rasmus Hojlund. What I can tell you is a lot of the crowd last season were on his case. A lot of people were on his case at social media. I'm not his biggest fan, but it did maybe want to stick up for him a little bit because it's not nice to see when you see the crowd just hammering a young player, and they were hammering him. Foundation Manchester says, Jay, what do you think of my chant? Boom, let me hear you say ooh, hang on a minute. By boom, let me hear you say uemo. Might need a little bit of work there, my brother. I mean, it's a chant that you've come up with. I'll give you that. David O'Connor says, how can you call our best player a rat? We would have been relegated without him. I haven't. I don't know who you're referring to there. I guess you're talking to someone in the chat who's calling Bruno Fernandes a rat. I like Bruno Fernandes. I always have, and I am glad he's staying at Manchester United. You may disagree. Jay Porter says 2 out of 10. Try again. I think that's for Foundation Manchester's chant, and he says my bad. Michelangelo Dulce says you can't have Xerxes, Cheeto, Sesko, and Hojlund for only one position. I don't know if Xerxes is an out-and-out striker. He might be better suited to one of the 2 10s. I mean, I think he could play in the front 3 with Mbeumo and Cunha. Maybe there's a bit of rotation. Maybe he's the one who's sort of a little bit deeper in there pushing on. We'll have to wait and see. But I get your point. It does feel a little bit like you may have one too many if it's only one game a week, because we haven't got European football. One game a week, is that enough for to have all those players? Cheeto, obviously, is one for the future. So maybe you don't need to worry about him too much. Maybe he'll still get minutes. Maybe he's the one that you use in the cup games. But I don't know. I get your point of like, if after, say, 10 games, Rasmus Hojlund is yet to start for Manchester United, is he going to be happy with that? Probably not. Just something here I saw on the BBC this morning. It says former Newcastle scout criticises their transfer market approach. Newcastle's former club scout Paul Montgomery, has criticised what he perceives as a lack of urgency and assertiveness in the transfer market this summer. He went on to say, I would question Newcastle's lack of aggression in the transfer market. In the modern day, you have to be aggressive when you want to sign a player. When you identify a player and he's your man, then you have to get him, get to his face, sit with him and tell him he's the best thing since sliced bread. Or alternatively, get him on a private jet, get him to that stadium and show him the videos of the fans when Newcastle won the cup to show the passion of the club. That's what sells the club. And to do that, you have to be aggressive. And sadly, I just don't see that at the moment. It looks like at the minute, Newcastle are going to miss out on Benjamin Cesco and he's heading to Manchester United. And it's not been a great window for Newcastle, has it? They missed out on Mbeumo. Then they lose. It looks like they're on the verge of losing Alexander Isak. Then they've gone in for Sesko. They've missed out on him. I know they brought Anthony Elanga in, but it's not been a very positive window, especially if they lose Isak, which it looks like they're going to do. There's a story here in the Mail. It says Manchester United have rebuffed approaches from clubs in the Premier League and Italy for Harry Maguire. Seems that he's had a few suitors. But the 32-year-old is staying at Manchester United. Manchester United not keen on selling him. He's done well, Harry Maguire, last season or two. He had a lot of stake, didn't he? A lot of people criticising him. A lot of people saying he wasn't good enough and we needed to get rid and he wasted the money and all the rest of it. But when Martinez was injured, when De Ligt was injured, even Euro was injured at one point, I think we had our entire back three out, our first choice back three. Then Harry Maguire stepped up. Saw obviously the goal against Lyon. Don't get me started though. It still frustrates me. It was all for nothing. But I think Harry Maguire is a useful player to have around. Can do a job if he starts. I don't have any qualms if Harry Maguire is starting for Manchester United. Personally, I'd probably have De Ligt, Martinez as Euro as my back three. But if you've got injuries or if the manager feels differently, I wouldn't lose my mind if it's Harry Maguire that's starting. In fact, Carl Anker, when we had him on the channel, said he would have gone, or he would go with Harry Maguire over Matthias De Ligt. I'm not sure about that one, but I get the argument, and I think Harry Maguire's done a good job. And I'm not surprised that Manchester United are saying, you know what, we're not looking at selling him. We're not interested in selling him. How much would you get for him? Not much. He's 32. I know he's on about 190k a week, which obviously you get that off the wage bill, but look at the amount of games he played last season. I think he ended up playing like 40 plus games last season or something like that. So he could end up doing that again. Josh Mackey is in the chat with the super chat. He says 08-09, we had Berber, Tevez, Rooney, Ronaldo, Nani, Giggs, under that Welbeck and Makeda. Nothing wrong with depth if you reinstill that old United attitude. Yeah, listen, depth is good. I know back in the day, you probably had two strikers rather than one, but depth is good. You need a bit of options. You need a bit of competition. So I'm not too concerned if Hojlund didn't go and we brought in Benjamin Cesco. I think it's healthy to have some competition. We'll have to wait and see, though, because there's talk that maybe if we bring in Cesco, Rasmus Hojlund might be surplus to requirements. Milton says Maguire is still okay for the defence and corner headers. Dan Raymond Barizzo says United should sign Bruno Guimaraes and really just end Newcastle's season. And then he's laughing. I mean, if you're Bruno Guimaraes, you're probably looking around going, what's going on in this club, man? We've just, got into this Champions League, won a trophy, and we seem to have gone backwards in the transfer market. I just don't want to get too giddy yet, because Newcastle might try and go turbo and convince Benjamin Cesco to try and come to St. James's. But as it stands, it looks like he's heading to Old Trafford. As always, we'll keep you updated. Apologies for all the chaos earlier on this live. It was all happening on it. Kool-Aid Father says, it feels like Newcastle used the in-game editor in Football Manager to add funds, but don't know how reputation works. Maybe you're right. We're going to be back later on today. It's going to be me. It's going to be Joe Smith for Transfers Live. Also, as well, I want to say a big thank you to Akash K yesterday. Drops, I think it was 50 super chats. I did thank him at the time, but I wanted to thank him again because that was a mega sort of contribution to the channel. And on the super chat, 50 memberships, sorry, he gifted on the membership front, we have got a members video coming out probably early next week. It's going to be all our stuff from behind the scenes on the US tour. So you're going to get to see what went down on the US tour. That's extra content for our members. So we do appreciate all the support we get from everyone, but particularly shout out as well to our members for their support, which help keep the channel going. Make sure if you're not doing so already, you are hitting like, share, and subscribe. We're back later on tonight with Transfers Live. I'm Jay Motty. This has been the Paper Talk from a pretty sunny-ish Salford. Thanks for watching.